Hey everyone, today we're going to take a trip down one of the most incredible rivers on the planet, the Mekong. It is a true lifeline, weaving its way through 6 different countries and supporting millions and millions of people. But this isn't just a travelogue, it's really a story about an interruption, about how a powerful natural rhythm has been changed, maybe forever. Let's get into it.
To really get what's happening to the Mekong, you have to think about this question right here. A river isn't just water flowing in one direction. It has a pulse, a seasonal rhythm that an entire world depends on. So what happens when that pulse gets weak or gets silenced altogether? That's what we're here to figure out.
All right, first things first, we need to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this river. Its journey is nothing short of epic, and for the people who live along its banks, well, it's everything.
Okay, so just look at this journey. It's absolutely epic. The Mekong kicks off way up on the Tibetan Plateau, and then it carves its way through China, where they call it the Lancang, then through Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, all the way down to Vietnam. We're talking about a lifeline for more than 50 million people. Their food, their jobs, their entire culture, it's all tied to this one river.
Now, let's go all the way back to the source. Because the story of this interruption, it starts right where the river itself begins, high up in the Himalayas. This is where pristine nature slams right into massive, modern engineering.
So it all begins right here, in a place people call Asia's water tower. And for good reason. The melting water from these gigantic glaciers is what feeds not just the Mekong, but a whole bunch of Asia's biggest rivers. But here's the thing, this source is already in trouble. Thanks to a warming climate, these glaciers are retreating.
And this is where we see the first huge intervention. In the upper part of the river, the Lancang, the landscape is super steep and the water is incredibly powerful. So to fuel its booming economy, China has harnessed that power by building a whole series of enormous hydropower dams, almost like a giant concrete staircase down the river. And the scale of this is just mind-boggling. There are already 7 of these mega dams up and running, but there are at least 21 more either being built right now or on the drawing board. This isn't just one dam. It's a complete re-engineering of the river's natural flow, all designed to churn out electricity.
Okay, let's head downstream a bit, because all of this concrete has a massive effect on one of the most unique and incredible natural events on the entire planet. This is what we've been calling the heartbeat of the lower Mekong.
So, deep in Cambodia, you've got the Tonlé Sap Lake. You can think of it as the country's pantry. An unbelievable 40% of Cambodia's population depends on this lake system for their food and their income. Its health and the health of the Mekong are totally intertwined.
So here's where it gets really wild. During the wet season, the Mekong gets so powerful, so full of monsoon rain, that it literally forces the Tonlé Sap River to flow backwards. It's incredible. This backward flow inflates the Tonlé Sap Lake to, get this, up to 6 times its normal size. It's like a giant natural sponge, creating these amazing flooded forests that are basically a 5-star nursery for fish. Then, when the dry season rolls around, the whole process reverses. The lake drains back out, feeding the Mekong and its delta for months. That right there, that's the river's pulse.
So, we've seen how the natural system is supposed to work. Now let's look at what happens when that essential heartbeat is thrown off kilter. The consequences for people are not abstract. They are direct and they are devastating.
And here's the human cost, in plain, painful words from a fisherman who's lived this his whole life. A 10-fold reduction. Just try to imagine your income, your main source of food, just collapsing by 90% in a single decade. It's catastrophic.
And this chart just shows it so clearly. The blue line from 2012, that's the healthy, natural pulse of the river, a steady climb to a big peak in August, which is the trigger for that amazing flood. Now look at the gray line from 2019. The pulse is gone. It's been totally flattened out. The dams upstream are now holding water back during the monsoon season and then letting it go whenever they want, completely out of sync with nature.
And that's the critical piece of the puzzle. Without that big, predictable flood pulse, the Tonlé Sap just doesn't fill up like it's supposed to. Those huge flooded forests, the nurseries for the entire fishery, never get properly flooded. Fish have evolved for millennia to migrate and spawn with that pulse. When it doesn't come, their life cycle is just broken, and the fish population plummets. But the damage doesn't stop in Cambodia. We have to follow the water all the way to the end of the line, to the massive delta in Vietnam, which is one of Asia's great food baskets. You see, a river delta is literally land built by the river itself.
For thousands of years, the Mekong has carried something like 160 million tons of rich sand and silt downstream every single year, depositing it at the mouth and constantly building new land. But the dams, they act like giant nets, trapping all that precious sediment. And so the delta is essentially being starved of the very material it needs to survive.
This data is it's stark. Look, for decades, the delta was actually growing, adding more than 4 square kilometers of new land every year. But then look at the last row, 2005 to 2015. For the first time, that number turns negative. The delta isn't growing anymore. It's shrinking. It's washing away.
So why should you care if it's shrinking? Well, this delta is one of the most fertile places on the planet. It produces more than half of all the rice for Vietnam, a country of nearly 100 million people. It is a cornerstone of food security for the entire region.
And here's the final terrifying piece of the puzzle. This incredibly important, rapidly shrinking food bowl is also incredibly low-lying. A full 3/4 of it is less than a meter above sea level. So as the land sinks and the sea rises, well, you can see it's facing a true existential threat.
Okay, so the science is crystal clear. The impacts on people are devastating. Which brings us to the obvious question. Who's in charge here? Why isn't anyone stopping this? And the answer, of course, lies in the messy world of geopolitics.
In a perfect world, a shared river like this would be managed by some international group with actual power, the authority to make and enforce rules for the good of everyone. But the reality? It's not even close. The main group, the Mekong River Commission, is just an advisory board. It can do studies, it can make suggestions, but it has zero power to force any country to do anything. And here's the kicker. China, the country controlling the headwaters and most of the dams, isn't even a member.
And this really boils it all down. From China's perspective, what they do on their part of the river is their business, an internal affair. The countries downstream often aren't consulted, let alone given a say. And time again, we see short-term economic goals winning out over long-term environmental health. And the people, the millions of farmers and fishers whose lives are being turned upside down, they have no seat at the table.
So we're left with this really heavy question. It gets to the very heart of the problem. In a world where we're all connected, where our ecosystems don't care about borders, where does one country's right to develop end and its responsibility to its neighbors begin? The entire future of the Mekong and all the people who call it home really hangs on how we answer that.